Great. Well, thank you. And I just wanted to begin by saying that I thought many of the comments made by the speakers earlier are exactly on point to understanding the challenge we face. President Bondo's remark about how in some circumstances technology may be the solution, but in other circumstances, we look to manual solutions, I think is very much in the back of the minds of people who look at the issue of election security. Tom Patterson mentioned the report of the National Academy of Sciences a couple of years ago, which we were actually involved with. And one of the conclusions from that report is that as you move from the world of paper ballots, which you can verify literally by counting, to a purely digital online voting environment, you actually lose some of the mechanisms, for example, of auditing that are necessary to ensure trust in election outcomes. And I think this also begins to provide an answer based on some of the intermediate solutions that governments are looking at. For example, mail-in ballots have the characteristic of providing a paper record that enables auditing, but also respects some of the unique challenges we face today during a pandemic, where there is concern that voter participation at polling places, physical polling places, may be diminished. So that's one way to understand how we can combine the traditional advantage of the paper ballot with some of the unique challenges we face today. This is true also, by the way, even in the voting machines that are being used, such as the scanner machines that can take a paper ballot, scan it rapidly, produce a digital tally that can be reported, but also maintain the paper ballot so that a post-election audit becomes possible. Again, this is an intermediate solution that provides some benefit enabled by technology and also preserves auditability. There's one other issue I wanted to raise in this context, and it's a little bit subtle, but I think it should be on the minds of leaders of democratic governments, and that is that our modern understanding of the right to vote requires not only an assurance that people can equally participate and the roles of political parties are fairly respected, but also that when people cast their ballot, that is a secret ballot, and that others, their employers or their relatives or their neighbors, can't compel a person to reveal who they're voting for. And I think we understand why in democracies, the ability to vote privately for a candidate or a referendum, which may not be a popular position, is nonetheless a vital right to maintain the vibrancy of democratic governance. And this is also an additional challenge to online voting systems. So when you begin to look closely at the process of collecting votes and tabulating votes, again, when we move from the realm of the paper ballot dropped into the box to a circumstance where someone is asked to open a web browser and type in the candidate they support, almost immediately, I think we have to ask the question, will there be an assurance that that person's vote will be tabulated without the requirement that the person's identity be known? So this is one of the other challenges, I think, associated with online electronic voting. But again, to pick up on some of the comments of the earlier speakers, I don't think this is a reason that we can't use the internet to promote voter participation, to provide clear guidance about steps that are being taken to address public health concerns, so that people who do go to physical polls have the information they need to participate with trust and confidence. But I think when we get up to the point where we begin to talk about the tabulation of votes in an electronic environment, we need to be aware that there are many, many risks. Systems can fail. There can be adversarial attacks, not only domestically by a political party or criminal enterprise, but also by a foreign adversary, which could obviously seek to destabilize a democratic government simply by calling into question the reliability of electronically tabulated vote. And final point, which I'll make, I was sharing this with Milburn in our pre-conference conversation. With electronic systems, there is also the risk of a global failure that can be far more problematic than when a single system fails. So for example, a voting machine can fail if it runs on electricity and someone accidentally knocks out the plug. That happens. But when voting systems are networked together and the network fails or is compromised or is attacked, then all of the systems on the network fail. And that risk of global failure almost necessarily magnifies the consequence of the decision to move to online voting. I had this personal experience recently. I was playing in a chess tournament in the United States. It was a tournament that had in the past taken place in a physical location. We'd all fly off to some city and sit in a hotel conference room for a couple of days. This year, they decided to organize it on the internet, as many chess tournaments are done now, mostly with success. We get to the final round, the championship round. Everyone is remarking on how well things are going, how very smoothly the tournament is operating. And twice during the final round, the server on which all the games are taking place goes down. And you just have to imagine chess players who don't deal with adversity particularly well, looking at a blank screen on their computer. And I thought to myself, my goodness, if I were an election official, you know, the night of the votes, waiting for the votes to be reported, and suddenly everything went down simultaneously, I imagine it would not be a good evening. So a point to keep in mind as we look at what technology can and cannot do to enable participation in democratic elections.